GrokTALK.
I was told this morning that I had to have some kind of Irishy sounding music, so I threw this together. Happy St. Patrick's Day coming up. I have going to an event at Mike's where I will wear green, I promise, this evening. A little gathering. Because Marmar would give me the eye if I didn't have green on, I'm sure.
She would. Meanwhile, welcome back to GrokTALK, where we don't need to kiss the Blarney Stone.
That's right.
Yes, GrokTALK, a production of GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative libertarian blog site.
That is, and as we always remind you, please check out cnht.org. Please visit us at GraniteGrok.com and see what we do, read what we do, see what CNHT does. Check out to see where Mike's right there, where Ed's going to be doing his next voter fraud workshop. They do all kinds of things. They don't just do voter fraud workshops too. So there's a lot of things going on. You could help you with your local municipalities and all that good stuff. And of course, we are on iTunes, and we are on TuneIn, and we are on Stitcher, and Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. So, and on YouTube and Ustream.
Correct.
So there's lots of different ways you can check out our program, and we'd like you to do that. But we're going to continue giving you a program by bringing in our guest for his actual segment. Bill O'Connor is here, and you're still chairman of the county, Stratford County
Yes.
Committee,
Yep.
Stratford County Republican Committee, and you started a PAC called
Yes.
Saber PAC. And I went to your site, and I noticed there's a lot of stuff about Gene Shaheen there.
Yes.
But I know you said that one of the things that you guys were emphasizing was transparency and accountability.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, what else? Tell us about your PAC, what you're hoping to accomplish, and we'll just take from there, and we'll talk about squirrels. And
Well, squirrels.
who knows?
What we wanted to do, it started in the end of November, and we were sitting around going, how can we kick Jean Shaheen a little bit while she's down? Because that was
Kick her in her naked undies.
Yeah, no, it was a really bad part of Obamacare sign-ups, and it was a disaster for them, and she didn't know what to do. So we said radio ads would be great. So we went to the county committee and said, to a meeting, there were like 35 people there, and said, hey, what do you think we spend some money on some radio ads against Jean Shaheen? And you know how it is with a committee. Before you know it, it wasn't going to work out. So, and then we found out that if you want to run ads against a senator or a federal
Candidate, yeah, you
candidate, you have to have a PAC.
Yeah.
And the county committee couldn't do it. And by the time you get 30 people trying to decide what the ad should say, it wasn't going to work out. So a few of us, Len Turcott, Margaret Culp, who's our vice chair, and myself started a PAC. And the three of us can work together and make decisions without a problem. So we raised a little bit of money and ran that first radio ad. Hopefully we'll be running some more soon. We've got to work on getting some more money.
Well, what we'll probably do is we had talked about running the ad for you. We'll just run it for nothing if you want to send it to me.
Okay.
Because we haven't really ironed out what our fee schedule is as we move into the campaign portion of the season and the year where we're going to be approached by actual campaigns to do some advertising. And we're going to charge them for that. Typically, if you're like a nonprofit or a local group, we're going to just play your ad for free because we want to help support you, especially if you are supporting us by coming on our show, talking about it, sharing links. And so that's just a kind of a tit-for-tat thing. But we didn't get the rate schedule ironed out yet. And so just email me the MP3 or whatever, and I'll throw it into the rotation.
Okay. Yeah, so the first ad was pretty cool. It was Len's wife did it, and Marga. And it ran for a week down in the Seacoast area. And one of the good things that's in Gene Shaheen's husband plays that radio station in his office.
Bill.
Which is why we picked that
That's
one.
awesome.
But,
Billy. Now, one of the things you mentioned, and this is, the more I do this stuff, the more it really irritates me, because we do have SB 120 here in New Hampshire, Senate Bill 120, being pushed by 5 Republicans. That's going to further tighten down the screws on political speech. And if you go back and you look at your history around the time that the framers were putting together the Constitution, the First Amendment, the the whole idea of free speech was specifically meant towards political free speech, the ability to speak up either by name or anonymously about or for or against the candidates or the issue of the day. And they wanted to make sure that anybody, the normal, ordinary person in the street could do that. And yet you just said, well, I can't do that. I have to form this political committee, which meant that you had to go spend time, talent, and probably some money to say, how do I form this PAC, just so that a couple of me and my buddies can get together and tell the world what we think of this particular person. And I go, this is nuts.
The instruction guide for forming a federal PAC is like 250 pages, and then the application was massive. So luckily, Len is he's not a lawyer, but he should be.
So let me ask in respect to that, Bill. A lot of people have formed PACs, and we've heard a lot of talk the last year about how the IRS is unfairly punishing or limiting conservative PACs by making it harder for them to become 501c3s or C4s. So my question to you is, why not just say the hell with it, fill no paperwork, do nothing, and simply pay tax on your income and not be burdened by any government regulations except for decency, which is the choice that the 10th Amendment Center takes, by the way. They do not file as any kind of non-profit. They simply pay tax on income and feel free to say whatever the hell they want.
That would be a good idea. I don't know if we really didn't think of that. We just followed the rules. They said you got to have a PAC to go.
So the question is, have they already limited our speech to the point where you have to actually officially declare yourselves a PAC in order for two or more people to jointly publish their opinion?
It's just one person, and because if you spend above a certain amount, you have to do all of this rigmarole as well. It's what is going on at the federal level is also happening at the state level. In fact, it is New Hampshire State Senate Republicans Jeb Bradley, Sharon Carson, Bob Odell, and New Hampshire State Representative Sean Jasper, who have decided that with Senate Bill 120, they are the sponsors of it, they're going to tighten it down even more. They're going to make it more convoluted, more understandable for the regular person, and lowering, they're playing with the amounts of money that you can spend before you become ensnared. And it's how much speech can you have and not go over $500? And you pointed it out earlier, Steve, that then any political operative can go look at their opposition and go, I can snare you and tie you up in lawsuits.
Well, that's just it. And you also know you have to understand that the bureaucracy gets their hands on this. They get to decide what part of your engaging in speech included the cost. Is there an amount of money from the cost of your laptop and your whatever, this radio equipment? Where do you draw the line on what is a cost that then accumulates to the point where you're breaking the law? They get to decide that. They get to change it whenever they feel like it, pretty much. And so you get yourself in this trap where somebody like Bill wants to go out and engage in political speech. Then he went out and he got the 250 pages of rules. But most of us,
we wouldn't bother.
No, and I certainly wouldn't bother. I know that if I contribute in money or in kind to a politician's campaign, that I have to limit myself to the amounts specified, and I never quite understand how these $30,000 per plate dinners work as contributions, but I limit myself to the amount specified. On the other hand, if I want to put out a general issue advertisement by myself, I don't feel any burden to report that to anybody, and I wouldn't.
Yeah, well, they would. Now, this is a federal PAC,
yes.
Saber PAC.
We also have a state PAC.
Does that mean that you had to go through the IRS to be a nonprofit?
Len did all this, but yeah, we had to go through the whole federal government, and he did a state PAC also, which was very easy. The Secretary of State's office helped him out on the phone whenever he wanted and all that. But the federal one was pretty convoluted, and we have to file monthly reports to them.
Send in blood samples.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, did you get the questionnaire from Lois Lerner?
I haven't seen that yet. I'm expecting it soon.
You have to file from Kenya in order to get Lois Lerner's signature on
That's
your
right.
approval.
Because Malik got got his prorated back 2.5 years, so that all the money he collected for his brother running for president would be illegal. So anyway, what else do you guys are focusing on Gene Shaheen now?
Yeah, right now, we probably could come up with 100 different ads.
Yeah.
That one that we did was meant to run in December. It just, these things take longer than you think they're gonna.
Okay, as you move forward, we come into a situation where you have 525 or 6 races going on in the state of New Hampshire. You have federal races. Is there anybody else congressional races you might want to look at? Is there governor's race? Anything you guys talked about that yet?
We'd love to go after Carol Porter and Governor Hassan. Definitely. But we gotta.
Well, you gotta have money.
Yeah, we gotta have money, but I guess whoever says the dumbest thing last will be the one we'll go after.
Well, yeah,
Sort of like us.
It's a target-rich environment, so it really gives you a lot of things that a lot of things to shoot for. So, so you've got your PAC. That's the one thing, and then how are things going on the county side with the party and whatever?
They're going great over there.
Are they?
Our last meeting, we came out with a resolution. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. Against,
I bet you I can guess.
Against Obamacare.
Expansion,
Expanded Medicaid.
Yep.
Our meeting's been going well. We've got 35, 40 people to a meeting now, and we have two great senators in our county, Sam Cataldo and John Reagan, and they come to almost all the meetings.
Good.
So we had a big discussion about expanded Medicaid. John Reagan gave us one side of the issue. Sam Cataldo gave us the other side, and it was very good. It was a good discussion. Went on for about 20 minutes. We came out with a resolution against it, and the two senators brought it to the Senate president and said, "Here's what they came up with," and obviously it didn't work. But
both of them voted against it.
They both did.
Yes. And that's important because I know John was kind of thinking he would support the idea based on Bradley's presumption that they had to pass something or else they'd get stuck with something worse.
Right.
Which, of course, is an entire other debate we won't get into because then it'll distract from you.
So, and we have we're trying to do an event with the county monthly until election time. So this month, the 27th, Betsy McCoy is coming.
She's great.
She carries the.
Oh, we love her.
She comes here all the time.
Oh, does she?
Yep. We almost got her in studio. She got as close as a rest stop in Massachusetts.
The IRS building.
The IRS building. Yes, that's a rest stop.
She's coming on the 27th, and actually Senator Bob Smith and Frank Inter are going to be. So we'll have all three. We get a little bit from every.
So any chance you'd get over to that, Skip?
What day again?
The 27th. It's a Thursday night, 6:00.
That's tough, isn't it?
That's tough time-wise.
Yeah, I have to go support my local Hollis Republicans at their meeting on the 27th because the night before we're hosting Scott Brown at our place. And you might say, why on earth is a Grokster hosting Scott Brown? And the answer is because we want to give them a chance to air their positions and try to earn the trust of the people. I don't think they're going to get very far, but they need to have that opportunity. He's gonna try and sell New Hampshire. Let's hear how he tries to sell New Hampshire.
Well, I want to see how he's going to protect New Hampshire from the federal government, and his voting record thus far hasn't been stellar.
Hasn't been great. We're going to take 60 seconds as soon as I press a couple of buttons to make sure that your 60 seconds is as enjoyable as possible. We'll be right back.
Molly Shaheen, Senator Gene Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency. Well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. New Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who aren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to be claiming to live here just so they can vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for GrokTALK, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
GrokTALK.
During the break, we were talking about the sword of Barry Cleese. Or is it Obama Cleese?
I'm calling it Barry Cleese, and I'll be manufacturing a sword to put in a graphic of some sort.
Just to give you a heads up, it was just sort of a very brief discussion about how, since the president does not actually have the power to waive the actual law, anybody who decides to not follow it can retroactively be punished for refusing to or failing to follow the law that the president said you didn't have to follow, because he can't do that.
Exactly, and of course the IRS will then come after you for your shared responsibility contribution, because it's not a penalty, that was illegal. It's not called a tax anymore because that's offensive. It's now a shared responsibility contribution.
Contribution or payment?
Payment, maybe.
Yeah.
But you must contribute. It's not voluntary.
Yeah, just like my former New Hampshire State Senator Kathy Skimbody said, well, in order to be able to help people, we all have to be in. Progressives say you don't have the choice not to be included, because we will include you whether you like it or not. And that must be something that you talk about quite often at your meetings. Bill O'Connor, who's here to talk about Sabre PAC and is also the chair of the Stratford County Republicans.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the battle space over there in Stratford County.
Well, talking about the sword, that reminds me of why we named it Sabre PAC. That was the whole idea, was that I think it was Jeff Chittister said at one of our meetings, he said Republicans really have to stop hiding behind a shield and they have to get out the sword. So we have a business card with a with a sword, and there's no shield.
I put your logo up when we first heard about it.
Yeah, so he has no shield. So
well, that's even better.
He doesn't need the shield because he's on offensive, like
Right.
our Republicans in Washington aren't.
Exactly.
Except for maybe Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and Rand Paul.
Yeah.
So you guys have to help hustle up candidates and stuff like that? Or do you leave that to the towns? You guys do it all together?
No,
right?
Laura Jones is heading up that effort in the county. She's like a pit bull. She gets a hold of somebody, and she won't let them go.
Yeah.
But it's really tough. We got 37 House seats, 3 Senate seats, and then of course all the county ones. And it's hard to get somebody to commit to that kind of time commitment. And I found most of the people we recruit, once they get in, they enjoy it, but they're pretty hesitant to sign the name.
I mean, if I financially could swing it, I'd be running in a heartbeat, either for the House or for the Senate. But unfortunately, I look at how our citizen politicians work. They get basically a per diem and $100 a year. And I really do believe that's the way to do it, but it does eliminate a lot of folks like me who are working stiffs that have to be able to do, the work to be able to keep the household running. And I'll tell you, I've been asked a number of times to run, and each and every time I sorrowfully, and I chose that word carefully, sorrowfully have to say, I can't do it, because I'll tell you, I would have so much fun.
The Democrats have almost gotten to a point where the people on EBT can run.
Well, we actually exposed somebody who was on welfare in the state. She was an amnesty person, and I'd have to go way back to remember the name. But we just kept on. I kept on reporting on it, and her name kind of got up there, and all of a sudden she realized I'm screwed, and she quit. She because a lot of people started to say, why should somebody on welfare be there to advocate for more welfare? It just didn't sit too well, and
It's one step back to the reality where there's lots of people who aren't on welfare advocating for welfare. I mean, really, that's a good point, though. I mean, it is a conflict of interest.
Yes.
And that's just another one of those great examples. I mean, we've had reps elected from Massachusetts. We've had college students from Vermont run for public office and get elected. The electoral system in this state is just embarrassing.
Well, that's because, once again, we see laws not being enforced. When it comes to private companies, they can do whatever they want. They have a profit motive to keep them in line when it really comes down to it. But when it comes to government, process matters. To be open and transparent, and you probably get this all the time, you have to have processes that everybody can understand. They're open to everybody. Otherwise, they can't be trusted. and as I've been writing about on Granite Rock for a while, consistency breeds trust, trust breeds votes. And you must hear stories like you can't believe coming from all of your reps and your senators to say, I can't believe that this goes on. But when we look at our elected, our appointed officials, like the attorney generals, the police and all that, they're not enforcing the laws. And then they wonder why people distrust government.
Yeah, her name just flew out of my head, but we had a rep in the town of Rochester, or city of Rochester, lived in one ward and ran in another ward and used her mother-in-law's address, and they had proof. The Rochester City Committee was following it. She voted in a ward that she didn't live in the primary, and they brought all the proof to the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and that, as soon as Terry Norelli became Speaker, that whole investigation just died.
So she's still in the House?
Yes, and
from the
I'm not
wrong
sure.
ward.
She said she was going to move to the correct ward, and I haven't followed up on whether she actually did move or not.
So you raise two most excellent points there. Actually, one of them is the Democrats' stated belief that as long as you show the intent of moving somewhere, it's okay to vote there and pretend you're from there, which is what they do when they vote here. But the other thing is, try this thought experiment. So it's okay for a Democrat to believe that they belong to a particular district so they can vote there and run for office there. Have you ever tried telling the local school or the better school in the next town that you believe you live in that next town, or you intend to live there sometime maybe in the next 5 years, so you want your kid to go there right now? And see how many progressives will try and stop you?
Yeah.
I think you might get charged for that.
You might, especially if you're not a Democrat. We got a couple minutes left, and since you've been a commercial airline pilot for 23 years?
Yes.
Yes. Thoughts about the missing Malaysian plane? You're gonna,
I get to be an aviation expert?
Yes.
You know, all those guys talk out of there.
Yeah.
So I have to turn around. Boeing makes the best this isn't an ad for Boeing. They make the best airliners in the world. There's nothing even close. The 777 is the best Boeing that they've ever made. If it was mechanical, it would also have to include some kind of like gross negligence by either the crew or maintenance or something like that. So, I mean, I can't even picture a scenario where that would happen, where the plane would just disappear without any kind of signals or wreckage.
So Dr. Evil did steal it. Okay.
I'm going to guess it's going to involve some Muslim men between the ages of 18 and 35.
He's probably right.
Or like what happened with Egypt Air suicide.
Yes. It's still Muslim men between 18 and 35.
Yes, true.
Oh,
yes.
well,
but
yeah, that was a different reason.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was somewhere in the ocean because it's so hard to find. You know, it's a lot harder to find in the ocean.
Especially if there isn't any flotsam, if there isn't anything on the surface that people can see, no oil slicks, no debris, no nothing. If it just goes underwater and breaks up underwater, I mean, I don't know that I'm sure it would break up on the way in. But
so that was the kind of theory that was on the go early on, that, you know, either it blew up due to men of a certain persuasion between certain ages, or it suffered some kind of catastrophic failure. But if that was the case, they'd have found debris right where it disappeared off a radar. Now, of course, they were saying disappeared off a radar. They didn't mean that. From an engineer's point of view, what they meant is it disappeared off of the transponder response, because active or secondary radar uses a query response, which means a signal is transmitted in both directions and it has a very long range, whereas regular radar that bounces off of stuff like the police officer uses, or detection of planes that don't want to be detected, works off a reflection, which is why stealth aircraft work. So it's not a reflection. It was too far away for a reflection. This was active radar, meaning it was answering the requests, and it stopped answering the requests, which means either it blew up or it was turned off. They're now coming around to the theory that it was turned off. There's hints that it turned before it disappeared, And the bit that they kept hidden until I think it was yesterday, there were a couple of rumors Thursday, is that the plane has a telemetry transmitter. As Bill says, not only are they the best airplanes in the world, they actually keep phoning home so that you know what's going wrong, you know if something's wearing out. And so the telemetry transmitter stayed on for, about another 4 hours afterwards?
Yeah, now they say, I heard this morning they're saying it could have flown for another 7 after that. So
well, which makes sense.
It was a lot of places.
Yeah, it was scheduled for a 5 or 6 hour flight, and it had spare fuel, and it wasn't completely full. So yeah, all of that's possible. So now we're looking at it could be as far away as the sort of northern Pakistan borders with Afghanistan. So now the question is, why would they want to steal a plane full of mostly Chinese people and fly it that far away into what would appear to be Islamic territory, although Islamic territory could be anywhere from Malaysia, which was quite close, well, actually they're in Malaysia, sorry, Indonesia, which was quite close, all the way up to Pakistan and Afghanistan. And, how is it that with the satellite assets that we have no record of an airliner flying in those kinds of places?
Who says that we haven't?
But it would be hard to, also, if you think about all the electronic equipment on the plane and that the passengers have with them, I would think it'd be hard to hide all that if the plane was still above the water, is my thoughts.
So all right, we got 30 seconds. How do they contact you or your pack or
it's
stuff?
Well, actually, you can have my email. It's absoconnor@gmail.com, or they could call me 603-944-6015.
And it's saberpack.org.
Saberpack.org. That's the actual name of the pack.
Saberpack.org, right there.
Spelled the American way, folks. SABER.
All right, real quick. 30 seconds left before my actually going to break. Your scariest flight incident that you could share. Doesn't have one. Never happens.
Main and standby pitch trim failure on takeoff. It was a harrowing experience.
Okay.
But we made it back to the airport after 15-20 minutes and landed without incident.
Yay!
Well done, Sully.
All right, this is GrokTALK. We'll be right back with Scott Wilson from the CCDL. And Bill, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Turned off or tuned out recently? Can't believe what you see or hear these days? We have the show for you. It's all about taking control through understanding what's happening. Dr. Julianne Cooper, founder and president of Liberty Harbor Academy, hosts Carpe Diem, New Hampshire's first culture and education show on WSMN Radio 1590. Longtime history professor, entrepreneur, and cultural commentator Dr. Cooper will discuss what's happening in and to American culture and education. From pop culture to higher education, Dr. Cooper will help you make sense of the world. So, seize the day. Listen to Carpe Diem with Dr. Cooper every Tuesday from 11 to noon.
Steve McDonald here. Molly Shaheen, Senator Jean Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency, well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. New Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who aren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to be claiming to live here just so they can vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
GrokTALK is 2 hours of news and opinion you could only get from GraniteRock.com. But don't limit yourself to GrokTALK. Check us out at GraniteRock.com. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter by searching Granite Rock.
Grok TV.